Yeah, hello everyone. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the working conditions of teachers in the UK. Yeah, while we await our UK decision on teachers' visa come February, which is just next month, I would like to share some of the red flags. Yes, I would like to share some of the red flags which I think our aspiring teacher who are planning to migrate to UK for teaching job from February needs to know. All of these red flags that I will be reeling out are things which you as an aspiring teacher need to know prior to relocating to the UK for a teaching job. And I can tell you, our aspiring teachers out there, after watching this video, you will find out that many of you might need to enroll probably for an anger management class prior to traveling, prior to getting that job, or prior to starting that job in the UK. Few days ago, I placed a call to a teacher friend in the UK to know what the working conditions are like for an African teacher in the UK. And I can tell you, this friend of mine got a whole lot of stuffs, a whole lot of good and bad and the ugly incidences while teaching in the UK. In the UK, please sit back, relax, as I'll be reeling out some of these good side and the bad side of teaching in the UK. The first thing he mentioned to me was I think the area of racial abuse from the students in the UK. I think he mentioned that at one point, I think on a very, I think he said actually it was on a Tuesday, he got into his classroom and he was greeted by a caption written on the board saying, "What's the difference between a black man and a monkey?" And in that same write-up on his board, there was an answer saying, "At least a monkey can climb the tree." If that's not a racial abuse, tell me what that is. He told me that he got so angry, he got so paranoid, and he looked back to confirm, to ask who wrote those rubbish on the board. And before he could look back to ask that who did this, the student had already thrown his bag off the window outside. At that point, he said the student became so unruly that he had to leave the class. He went straight to the head teacher's office and he lodged a complaint. And what would the head teacher tell him? He said the only thing that the head teacher told him was for him to go back and control your class. He said he has never heard that in his life. That with time, after maybe some little persuasion, the head teacher decided, or maybe the head teacher reluctantly decided to follow him to the class to see what was written on the board. And by the time they both got to the class, the student had already wiped off the racial abuse on the board. At that point, he had no point. He had no excuse. So all the whole blame was thrown at him. I think he said he got a query for doing that he lied against the students. That is one. I think on another account, he told me that he was in his class one day, that the head teacher just called him out to probably what we call staff room in Nigeria. And there he met a parent, a lady who happens to be a parent of one of his students. And what he heard the parent saying, the lady saying that, I don't know that my son I don't know that my son has another father in the school. So out of curiosity, he inquired to know what was happening. And the student mother and that parent told this friend of mine that, why would you call my son your son? I guess my friend was very so surprised, because this is a normal practice here in Nigeria. In Nigeria school, you can see a teacher say, okay, here is my daughter, here is my son. You could probably refer to any of your students as your son or your daughter. But abroad, you do not say such. In Nigeria, they say there's this adage in where I'm from, that it is only one man and one woman that gives birth to a child. But it is the responsibility of a whole community to look after and train the child. But my dear, in the West, it's a sacrilege to call any of your students your son or your daughter. You could be jailed for that. So my friends, the aspiring teachers, as much as I've come to understand that you are seeking a greener pasture, please do not get yourself involved in something that will land you in jail. Do not say you've not been warned. So I think he also gave another scenario, another instance, where he was also called into the head teacher's office one time. And he said the head teacher was probably lamenting. The head teacher mentioned that one of the students came to report him that the tone of his voice is always too loud whenever he's teaching. That the tone of his voice, that the student complained that he was always raising his voice whenever he's delivering his lectures, and that his voice, the tone of his voice, or probably the decibel of his voice, is really impacting on his eardrum. And the aftermath of all of this is he's always finding it difficult to sleep at night, because this, my friend, his voice is a bit high. And to be candid with you, this friend of mine, the tone of his voice is very mild, just like that of a lady. He doesn't have this broad voice. So my friend told me that he said to the head teacher, you can see the way I speak to you. I don't raise my voice when I teach. I have a soft voice. And he said the head teacher wouldn't have any of all of these excuses from him, and that the head teacher told him point blank that if the eardrum of this student gets damaged, that the school may sue this friend of mine that happens to be the teacher, that it can be sued if the student's eardrum gets damaged. I tell you, this is some of the things you are going in for. In Nigeria, where we are, I doubt if any student has gotten that liver, has gotten that mind to even report any teacher that the teacher is raising his voice. But here is a civilized world. Here is UK. Anything happens. So please, as many of you out there that you have, probably your tone is high, you might need to bring it down in a bid for you to deliver your lectures there. He also mentioned to me in our discussion that at one point in time, he was also given a query by the head teacher because they got a complaint that from a student that he places his hand on one of them. And I asked him that what what do you mean by you were given a query because you placed your hand on one of your students? And he told me, he said, in your bid as a teacher to drive down your point to your students, chances are that you might maybe put your hand on their shoulder to probably to juxtapose a point or sort of. This is a common practice in Nigeria, in Africa, but in abroad they don't take it. You don't touch them to drive down your point. He said he was also giving a query for all of this. So why am I saying this? I'm just saying this so that you get to know what you are going into. I tell you, it's going to be a very wonderful experience though, but it's not something that is out of the world. It's not something that is out of the blues. It's just you are going into a civilized country where they have a whole lot of policy surrounding teaching. And if you look at all of these instances or all of these scenarios that I've painted to you, it only brings one thing to mind, which is that you as a teacher, you are at the mercy of the students you are teaching. I think he also mentioned something to me as well, that the policy out there in the UK gives the students a more upper hand than you who is the teacher. He even mentioned at one point that if the students are not too okay with your style of teaching, they reserve the right to walk out of your class without you doing anything. There's nothing you can. If they don't like the way you deliver your lecture, the policy there gives them the right to walk out of your class, and you can't do anything. So please, what I will implore all our aspiring teachers that will be relocating to the UK as from February is for some of you that are no-nonsense teacher back home in Nigeria, back home in your local communities, please, you may need to enroll for an anger management class or work on yourself such that you'll be able to tolerate people. So because I guess there are many teachers in Africa, their ability to tolerate people is not just there. But please, you are going to another man's country and there are policies. Please, you need to stick to the policies. You need to learn to tolerate some of these student excesses. Thank you. See you in the next video.